Live. Hello, everyone. So we're here having a tech chat, just me and my friend Snug over here. Yeah, we're going to talk about open source and some ideas for the community. So take it away.
Absolutely. Salut. Comment ça va? Yeah, that's the only French that will be. That's the French portion of this podcast, right? Yeah, I've been doing some traveling a lot. I've been probably to 20 some odd cities in about 7 countries in the past 3 months of my life, and I visited communities in particularly Node and Ruby, and I kind of like left out of New York City because I realized that we were kind of in a bubble because at the NYCRB meetup that we have, it's a organization of about close to 5,000 people. And there's on average about 200 some change that come to a meetup, maybe less depending on the speaker, presenter, things of that nature. It actually has just as many people on the waiting list. Come to find out, it's just that's the venue size. But interesting things started happening. I was asking people, how many is it your first time that you've been here? And at least half the room would raise their hand, but it would happen every single month. So I was like, well, wait a minute. Now the room's not getting bigger. Where are all of these? Yes, absolutely. Then you add a little bit of spice of the dev boot camps pretty much cranking out new developers. I mean, they're getting churned out, Kent. Like, so many. Average meetup, there's at least 30, 40 people come to me like, hey, Snuggs, have you heard anything yet this month? Like, I went to boot camp. I did everything everybody said for me to do. And gosh, it's like people aren't hiring. They are, but when I kind of tell them what my background is, they're like, come holler at us in a few years.
Yeah, totally.
But then, like, what do I do until then? It's almost like a model. And they're like, what do I do with my hands?
Yeah. Like I've definitely seen that problem. Yeah, I've definitely seen that for sure.
Yeah, very interesting. And so what I did was I said, well, I want to at least realize and be aware that something is kind of happening. And I noticed that it was happening in all the communities. It's just because it's ironic. The people in Node, they don't want to hear anything about Ruby. People in Ruby don't want to hear anything about Node, but they have the same ails because they're all humans.
Yeah. We have to solve the same problems.
Absolutely.
Like human aspect of things. Well, not just the human aspect of things. We got to solve a lot of the same problems.
And then I spoke at RubyConf recently, and I talked to some of the developers that were there, and they were like, wow, man, like do you realize you have like the biggest attendance in Ruby meetups, like I think in the world? I'm like, they're like, it's like 5-10 people that come to our meetups. Another guy who has a Node meetup in Kentucky, he's like, oh, well, there's like 3 people that come to our meetups. And I'm like, why is no one reaching out to middle America, if you will, and like, what about those people who are just trying to come up on a community and there's only about 3 people around them, or even worse, 2 of them are junior or senior developers and one's a junior and the 2 seniors don't even talk to the junior. That's kind of more what's happening. And when I noticed that was happening, I said, you know what, I'm not going home. I'm going to go to as many meetups as I possibly can and really get at ground zero and see what's going on. I went to San Francisco. I went to Hawaii after that, to LA for a bit, to Atlanta. Then I went to Europe. Then went to Portugal, Paris, France, the Ukraine, which they have a great tech community actually in the Ukraine, and to a couple of other places. I can't quite recall. It's all a blur to me.
Wow, man, you're just a nomad, like going all over.
Yeah, well, man, we can get deeper into that on another time. I pride myself on not having many things and sleeping on a yoga mat every night, actually.
Oh, man, wow.
Yeah. So one thing that happened was when I came back, I noticed that there were a lot of questions that were being asked the same. And I said, the first thing we need to do here, let's do a little experiment. And some people were upset. They were like, damn it, I was here for the free pizza. Like, you're changing stuff. You're actually making me stand up and things like that. And I said, the junior developers, you all go into that side of the room. The senior developers, you go on that side of the room. And the hiring managers, you go in over there in that corner. So, question I have for you, Kent, what do you think the percentage breakdowns were of that group?
So
Junior, senior, and hiring managers. Hiring managers could be like a HR person, someone who's got a job, maybe even a CTO.
Mm-hmm. I would say the like hiring, probably you had like 10% in the hiring group. There probably weren't a ton of senior developers there, although I could see like some people thinking that they are really senior when they really aren't, and some people saying like thinking that they're junior when they're really actually senior. Like people aren't a super great judge of themselves often, but yeah, like the split, I think you probably have like 10% HR hiring staff. I don't know, like 30% senior and the rest are junior. What was it?
You are, you get an A,
All
actually.
right.
Yeah, man. Previously that I've asked the people, they thought it was, oh, I thought there were a lot of seniors. There were, I'd say 70% junior,
Wow.
25% senior, and about 5% hiring managers.
Yeah, I wasn't too far off.
You know, you weren't in the ballpark. That was a home run for sure. Yeah, you know your community. So then the thing is, when you see that though, when you actually see people stand up and separate, that's when it kind of really resonates, because some of the seniors were looking like, oh my God, there's so many of them. You know?
Yeah.
And the juniors were like, oh my God, there's so few of them. Maybe that's why I'm not getting a lot of my questions answered.
Mm.
And the hiring managers were just sitting there like, oh crap, I may be hosed because I keep only going for that small group over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a real problem, I think, is we're, like you said, we're churning out a lot of juniors, but the companies aren't hiring them. And like I think like my team actually, or my sister team has hired several people coming out of boot camps, and it's been really successful. It's been awesome. So yeah, I think that there needs to be a culture shift for hiring organizations to put a little bit of faith and trust in these junior developers, and being okay with them with training them up a little bit.
Yeah, man, you're really hitting home there. So what I had them all do was I got them together and said, if you could actually, you know, let down your guard and tell the other two groups what your pain is, like tell them where it hurts. You know, what are the things that and the questions that you would ask of the other two groups? So that's the hiring managers asking of the juniors and seniors, the seniors asking of the juniors and hiring managers, and the junior developers asking questions to the seniors and the hiring managers. So what I have right here, what I feel is the most important one, and I told them, you don't write it down on the iPad or your thing. You're going to get a pen and paper, and you're going to huddle it out, and you're going to write it out. So I'd say out of about 100 junior developers, here's what we got 6 questions that they want to ask. Are you ready?
Yeah. I can't see it, so I want to hear it.
Awesome. So question number 1, and you see up here it says junior devs, like that's their handwriting, not mine.
Nice.
Question number 1, in-person mentorship, watching/reading materials. So that's not really a question, but I think we should go through each one of them, then touch on them. But if number 1 is in-person mentorship, there's 2 greater than symbols, which is like in Ruby we call it the alligator operator. And then it's like it says watching/reading materials. So what does that mean to you, sir?
So I'm not entirely certain I get the context. So these were questions that they wanted to ask to senior developers, or?
Well, it was a mixed bag. It was more, what questions do you have? And when you look back over the year of 2016, where could things have been improved that you feel someone in those 2 groups could help with?
Okay, so what was the statement again? Not question, but statement.
Yes, in-person mentorship, alligator operator, 2 groups.
Oh no, Snug, are you gone? Am I by myself here? Uh-oh. Something happened. Oh, hey, there you are. Are you there? I lost you for a sec.
All right, are we back?
Yeah, we're back. Okay, so in-person
Great.
mentorship is alligator symbol or operator.
Mhm.
And then what
Watching / reading materials.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I think yeah, it sounds like this person wasn't asking a question, but they were more saying what I need as a junior developer is mentorship. I like there are plenty of materials out there, but I need a mentor. We just had somebody join our call. Did you send that link out to somebody?
I believe I did. Matthew, you might not want to go in here, but if you aren't here, just well, we'll see. I sent the link out. I wanted to let people know in the group. I didn't. Maybe I shouldn't have did that, kid.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a link to the YouTube video.
Awesome.
I'll send that to you in a DM. You can like tweet that out or something.
Sweet. Well, I put it to my Slack group, so hopefully the masses don't come like that. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure anyone who's in here definitely respects what's going on and all of that. So, oh wow, he didn't have to leave. Okay. Yeah, that's yeah, that's all right. So I hear you there. An in-person mentorship and the watching and reading material. That's one that out of the 6, there's 2 that really resonate with me. And I think what I want to get out of this, or what I know I want to get out of this, is let's you and I go through and try to answer them coming from a senior perspective. And then there are going to be some times we're going to be like, wow, that's actually junior of me. And also which ones resonate with you the most. How's that sound?
Cool.
Yeah, because number 1 resonates with me. In-person mentorship's big. I mean, I'm a big proponent of, if you want to reach out to someone, try if you can to get in front of their face, or even just have them hear your voice and say hello, which is really how this happened. Mm-hmm. And that resonates so much, Kent. You know, I'm in a Slack channel for Rails. There's almost 4,200 people in there. And sometimes when somebody joins and they're a new dev and they have a question, I just Slack call them. And they're like, what? I didn't even know you can call from Slack. And you realize it's the first time any senior developers ever reach out to me. It's always us reaching out to them.
Yeah, that's awesome of you. I think that's a really great way to build a community. I know that, like with JavaScript Air, the podcast that I did this last year, I like would have teams of like open source project developers like ESLint and Babel and yeah, several teams of developers like come on to the show, and it was a video podcast, and this was the first time they'd seen or heard each other before. And so they're like, oh, that's what you look like, or wow, that's what you sound like. It like there's a real nice connection that happens when you actually hear somebody rather than just read what they're saying.
Oops. Let me close this. All right. So yeah, it's funny you say that. The actually one of the admins, this is one of the areas where it's the junior becoming the senior, or the senior becoming the junior. One of the admins, we were having a talk in our Slack channel, and it was like, you know, it's the new year, so we got to have some sort of agenda. And then, you know, one of them was like, oh, agendas are weird. And I'm like, they're only weird when they're pushy and you don't let other people contribute. But actually, without agendas, there's complacency. So we have to be careful of that as well. And they were like, well, what should we do? And yeah, we should just, you know, come up with this way that juniors would like to learn some things and how to really manage and handle over 4,000 people. And I said, has anybody ever actually asked any of the junior developers any questions instead of us kind of assuming that we know what they want? I mean, we do that enough with our clients and the work we develop. Let's be real, Kent. You know, yeah, they're going to need this.
We make a lot of assumptions, and we should at least be aware of when we're making assumptions, so that we can call BS on it and say, okay, let's find out what really is going on here.
Yeah, I always say to people, I'm a community activist. So I'm always active in the community, but I have empathy and expect that not everybody can do that. However, everyone can attempt to be more self-aware. Yeah,
I agree. Cool. So what
number
were some of the other questions?
Number 2, this is the one that really hits close to home, Kent. I don't have the answer to it. And every person I've asked this to is like, wow, that's a deep one, man. Number 2, how can you teach from junior developer mistakes? That's part A. There's like the 3-part question here. I guess it makes up for one. The first part is, how can you teach from junior developer mistakes? That's an interesting one, because if it was a junior developer asking a senior developer, they're asking to teach junior developer mistakes, not senior developer mistakes.
So I'm trying to understand that question though. Is it like, I'm a junior developer, I've made a mistake, how do you teach me based off of that mistake I've made? Or I'm a junior developer and I want to make sure I don't make mistakes, how do you teach me things so that I don't?
That's a great question. And I'm glad we're talking about it, because when I look at a meetup with all those people and I just get this piece of paper saying we all huddled together and this is what we got, I'm like, okay, I'll get back to you next meetup after I talk to a couple of my colleagues.
Yeah.
Next part, how can we make dumb questions welcome before they become big mistakes?
Yeah, so like questions about like safe databases or something like that. You do something really stupid with your database and it seems like an obvious thing, like, yeah, you want to have authentication on it or something, and you ship it off to production and you get hacked or something. Like it might seem like a dumb question from the perspective of a senior for a junior to say, why would I want authentication on this thing? But they need to feel comfortable asking those kinds of questions for sure. And I think, like, in an answer to that question, I know there's a third part, but I think it mostly just comes down to the way that the members of the community treat normal questions from developers. So like whatever question it is, like, just be nice, I guess. Like I don't know how to and you can constantly reinforce, like, there is no dumb question here. We know that, like, lots of people here are learning and getting into things. So if you need to ask a question about syntax or something, like, that's fine. Like, that's cool. And I think also there are really great forums for those kinds of questions. Like, it's really kind of unfortunate that we can't enforce a code of conduct of any kind on, like, Stack Overflow or something, but encouraging developers, like especially newer developers, to post questions to Stack Overflow and then maybe link them in your community so that the community can go over there and help answer those kinds of questions. But like that, in the communities that I've had for, like, libraries that I've written and that people are using, I try to push questions off to Stack Overflow, because often the question, like, pretty much amounts to, how do I do JavaScript, rather than how do I use your library, or like, this is a bug or something. And so, like, as a sole developer doing this stuff on my free time, I don't have time to like teach everybody in the world JavaScript. But like, if we put those things on Stack Overflow and then keep tabs on those questions that are on Stack Overflow, and make sure that if somebody says something unkindly, we can reinforce, and encourage that person. But yeah, I think that, like, makes kind of a good balance of making sure that people feel comfortable. They can ask any question and they'll get an answer. Stack Overflow is really good at like getting answers to questions, but also, like, you can ask a huge breadth of questions. And also, when people post to Stack Overflow, they, like, form the question really well, because, like, this is a big commitment. You're making a Stack Overflow question, and so the question is normally better formed, and then you, like, members of the community can go answer there. And yeah, it really just kind of comes down to, like, how you address the questions that people are asking, whether they be, like, dumb questions or not.
I see. Now here's the tricky one, where the junior side becomes the senior side becomes the junior, and the junior becomes the senior. Got me choked up on this one. How do we even know how to ask good questions?
Yeah, that one's tough. Like, oftentimes, like, you're like, I need to build an app and I don't know how to do it. You don't even know what questions to ask. It's just like, how do I build an app? Yeah, I've definitely been there. Yeah, that's tough. Like, I can think of an example. So there was one time I was struggling with authentication with an app I was building, I had a pretty much a single page app that communicated with just an API. So it wasn't server rendered at all. But I was using cookies for authentication because it was served on the same domain. My server had static file middleware in there. And so when I wanted to build a mobile app for it that would communicate with the same backend, I realized, or I found out that my authentication wasn't working. I couldn't figure it out. And I didn't know the right question to ask. And so like in those circumstances, you just kind of, the members of the community just need to be really patient as they hear what the problem is. Because I couldn't say, like, all that I knew was my authentication wasn't working. And I had no idea like why it wasn't working, what part of the whole experience was broken. I had no idea it had to do with cookies. In fact, I don't think I even knew that cookies was how my authentication was working. I was just like plugging a bunch of libraries together. And I think that happens often, especially like in JavaScript where there are tons of tools that you're plugging together. And so you never really quite even know what tool is causing the problem. And so, yeah, like as people who are helping and answering these questions, I think you need to like encourage the junior devs to just explain the problem, explain what they're trying to accomplish, and be really patient as you listen to that. And then you can make recommendations. This is what I did with this particular problem. I was on IRC and I said, hey, I'm having this problem. I built this app and now I'm trying to like authenticate with using a mobile app. And somebody suggested, oh, well, you could use JWT for that, JWT. And then I was like, oh, great, I've never heard of that before. I'll go research it and figure it out. And I did, and it was great. So I think that's kind of the solution, is just encouraging people to share what they're trying to accomplish and what problems they're facing.
I do feel that's an area where the senior side gets leveled, though. And the reason why I say it gets leveled is because senior, I don't think it's an ad hominem title. I believe it's a contextual title. You can look at someone, I think that's what the recruiting side does, is they say, oh, that's a senior developer. And it's like, well, what does that really mean, though? You know, because there's a lot of areas. One of the things I tell the juniors often, they ask, what is your favorite programming language? And I say, I have two. You ready for this one, Kent? Number one, psychology. Number two is great Google foo.
Nice.
If I can teach that to a junior, they'll figure out how to program, and probably figure out how to program better than a senior developer. And here's why. I still talk to a lot of senior JavaScript developers now, and they're like, I want to use this thing. And yeah, I just download jQuery UI and I'm off to the races. And in my head, I want to sit there and say, oh, you know, they came out with cars. You don't have to ride the horse anymore. But that's not me having empathy for even the senior developers. And the thing, here's the fascinating thing. They're the most difficult to get a new concept in their head, like document query selector all, like, you know, wrap that in a $, and that's most of jQuery, right?
Yeah, serious.
But if you tried to tell them a different way, that's when you have a lot of repulsion, like revolt. They call that the uncanny valley, where things are, they're real, but they're like surreal. So you just know, I don't really want to. No, I'm fine with my jQuery library. And if you go to Stack Overflow, make sure you look up any answer with a $, because it's definitely going to be the new hotness. You know, but then a junior developer, I say, you know, give me a junior developer that has an eagerness and is hungry, and I'll show you somebody that's going to be a senior developer. There's a girl that I took under my wing, not a girl, she's a woman. She reached out to me on Facebook in June of 2015. It was like 18 months ago. And she's like, Snuggs, I want to be a developer. I don't know how to write code. I'm an interior designer. And her name's Lizzie Green. And it was very painful starting off with her, because I had to remove a lot of fear. Like, she's actually really smart. Like, she got it where she was like, oh, this CSS and HTML stuff, it's kind of like interior design. Like, I want to put this thing over here and I want to make it blue. I get it. And like, she just started doing Flexbox and she started doing like CSS variables and all the new hot stuff. And then I'm looking at, and then she went and got a, 2 weeks ago, she said, I'm proud to tell you that guess who put in her 2 weeks notice, and guess who's a full-time remote developer now.
Wow.
18 months later. And I said, what's your biggest pain? And she's like, the senior developers want me to use floats in CSS. And I keep telling them to use Flexbox. And they look at me like I have a third eye on my head, like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When truth be told, she's more senior than them in that realm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's fascinating to me.
I see that a lot, actually. And myself, like I'm not too far from that experience either. Like I just started doing this stuff like 2.5 years ago. And so like I've never built a server rendered application before. Like I started with a single page app and that's all I've done. I mean, I've built server generated apps before, like where the HTML is generated, but not like an actual application with that's server rendered. And there are a lot of things I haven't ever had to do because there's the new stuff. Like I learned JavaScript before the ES6 greatness fun stuff came out, but I wasn't on JavaScript for too long before that actually happened. I was like 1 year, a year and a half or so, not even a year actually, before ES6 started to become a big thing. And so like I kind of grew up with ES6, and so I didn't like ES6 is JavaScript to me, and like really that is the reality these days. And so like, well, there are many things that I'm missing out because I don't have that deeper experience. I didn't spend a whole lot of time working with those like the more archaic and cross-browser incompatibility issues and that kind of thing. I didn't have that experience, so I feel like I'm kind of behind on that. I'm also not weighed down by all of that previous knowledge either. Like I know that there's a better way to do things, and like that comes more naturally to me. So like from the perspective of a new and upcoming developer, like that's cool. I remember my friend telling me that as part of my negotiation strategy, as I was getting started in the web dev community, or like in getting jobs and stuff, is people would say, like he said, okay, when they ask you like, well, you've only been doing this for a short time, like why are you better than anybody who's been doing this for a long time? And he said, what you tell them is you've had less things to have to forget. You like all the stuff that you know now is the new hotness, and like the new stuff. You don't have to forget the old way of doing things. And like there's truth to that a little bit. There's still like a lot to be said for having like long-term experience and that kind of thing, for sure. There's not really much of a replacement for that, but there is something to be said of like jumping in where you're at right now and just learning the new stuff, and
Absolutely.
like having that be natural to you.
I have another guy that I took under my wing. His name's Robert. About a year ago, when I met him, he was, we're both sneakerheads, right? So we love kicks. And when I met him, he was trying to build a bot in PHP, and he was showing me some code, and I met him on Twitter. And he was like, yeah, I got to get my site up. I got to use Putty and FTP my site up and all of this. And I didn't say too much to him because what the seniors typically will do will be like, PHP? Putty? Yeah. Oh man, like what are you doing? Like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, yeah, way to really deflate someone's balloon. Like,
yeah.
That's the fastest way to get them to run from being a developer,
Totally.
And what I did was I started showing him how I did things. And I said, this is how I do things. If you have any questions, like ask. And actually, I'd like for you to code review my pull request before I put it into master, because I need to have that stop point and have you ask those questions, because that's that part where you're learning, and you'll always go back and use that pull request as a reference. Fast forward a year later, I actually wound up hiring him and his twin brother, which I didn't realize he even had one until I found out that they both have the same technical aptitude, and he was teaching his brother after I was teaching him. And he just shows me his, imagine if you were like, if I could duplicate this guy, and he shows you a duplicate, and it's like, yeah, I've been listening too. You just didn't meet me yet. And so that happened, and he was having problems getting interns. And I was like, how are these two guys, because they're 16, having problems doing interns when they're turning into better developers than I am? So I said, why don't you guys go off and just do your own app? So they're like, sure, we got it. We're going to do an app. They go off and do an app that takes questions. You take a picture of a question and it responds to you after going through some AI process with a result, a good one, like one that even Google would say that's a pretty damn good result. And I was like, these guys can't get jobs, not even an internship. So that goes to number 3 here, which says, how do we incentivize hiring junior devs even though it's not as valuable in the short term?
Oh man, like that is such a misconception, that hiring interns is not as valuable in the short term. There's like, and it drives me
preach on it, Ken.
So like there are so many valuable things that an intern brings into an organization, or that a new developer brings into an organization. Like when I hired, so at my last job, I was the only developer on the front end for quite a while. And I was doing all kinds of fun stuff. It was awesome. It was a single page app. And so I had like total control over everything and just sent it up to S3 bucket. And like, it was magical. I loved it. And, but like the workload became too much for just me. And so I reached out and hired a junior dev. And all of a sudden, like everything that I had been doing was questioned, like everything. And it was fantastic. Like he'd say, so why are you doing this that way? Like, I don't understand it. Like, I'm not trying to be contentious or anything. I'm just like trying to understand why you're doing things this way. And then I'd have to stop and think like, why am I doing this way? Like, yeah, I don't actually have a really good reason for doing it that way. And so maybe there's a better way for us to do this. So like that right there is just one example of where having a junior dev is actually a really nice thing, because you get into this like Stockholm syndrome especially with senior devs, where it's just like, yeah, this is just kind of the way we do it, and it's great. But with junior devs, they're like really hungry to learn and to like be taught and to participate in this kind of stuff. So yeah, like that's one thing. Also, I am convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that the best way to learn is to teach. And having junior developers there for you to explain what you're doing and why like this ES6 feature is really great and why we should be using it, that's going to solidify your learning better than anything else. Like you can code all day long doing whatever, but nothing's going to solidify your learning like teaching what you're doing to somebody else. And so having ample opportunities to teach is really valuable as well. And then like, seriously, you're hiring these people and like, they're not free, but they're definitely less expensive from a salary standpoint. And so like, they are actually going to be bringing value to your company. They are going to be coding. Otherwise, you wouldn't be hiring them at all. And so like from that standpoint, like when I was an intern, I provided a great deal of value to my employer, and the junior devs that we've hired on our teams at PayPal have been phenomenal. They've definitely brought in value. So yeah, the idea that a junior dev or an intern is like not going to provide value right away is like totally false. And
my thing is, who put this in there? Yes. Who put this in their head?
I don't know.
Because I don't know.
I
don't know.
It's just garbage.
It's a poison and it's a cancer. And the crazy thing is, cancer spread, man. I'm like, who is putting this stuff in their head that they're not valuable? Because truth be told, my man, I know some. You mentioned, well, they're not free. I know right now a gang of junior developers that are like, you don't have to pay me. I just like, do me an unpaid internship. it's not about the money. It's about coming to work, like waking up in the morning and putting on my jacket and saying, grabbing my laptop and like, I'm going to my dev job right now. And I'm going to hang out with Kent next to the water cooler for like 2 minutes and get to pair with this person actually, instead of him just like pointing me off to Stack Overflow or Codecademy or something like that. Like I did with Lizzie. Like I actually just kept punting her off. Go to Codecademy, read this. When you get done with that, come back, little Padawan. You know? And then it's like, and she kept coming back every time. Was like, I'm still here. Finish Codecademy. What's next? And I was like, wow. Now I actually have to spend quality time with this person.
Yeah.
And,
you know,
like I have to spend quality time.
The idea of that pair programming too. Like, I get so easily distracted unless I'm pairing with somebody. And so like, even if all that you're doing is for a couple hours a day is pairing with this junior developer, that's going to be some really effective time for you. Like you're going to be able to focus and that person will keep you on task, and they'll ask you questions, they'll interrupt you, and they'll challenge your assumptions, which is exactly what you want them to do. So
what they say, a junior developer will lean on a senior developer during pairing more than a manager will, because this, the senior developer knows how to minimize Vim or maximize Vim right quick and get off for credit. But the junior developer sitting there like, what are you clicking on? What's that? What's that?
Why are you tweeting right now?
Why are you on Facebook right now? Yeah. Why do your tweets come in? Wow, dude, you got a lot of tweets, man. I don't even know how you get any work. I don't even know how you get any work done like that. Have you really?
Yeah. Well, truth be told, Twitter has turned into my Stack Overflow sometimes. Well, that's fun.
Oh, so these developers actually, they're already saying like, I'll work for free. I just want to kind of get in there, and they really want to work remotely. Like they want remote now. And I'm like, the hiring people have to be careful, because when they figure out that the developers are the ones that hold the power, it's like, I don't know what to say. Like the only thing that's holding them back is they have fear. Like that's really it.
Yeah, we have to, like, we're in a pretty good spot right now in the development world. It's definitely the developers market. We're sought after, and that's really, really nice. I hope that never changes.
Right. I have a little free gift for you here. You nailed number 4 and didn't even know it.
Nice.
They wrote pair programming nights plus open source. I don't know what that means, but I have an idea. And you touched on the pair programming. As far as the open source, that's where I'll get into this. A wise man I know, he wrote this manifesto called, what was it called? All Contributors? I think that's what it's called. And I've been using that. Like, I swear to you, dude, I use All Contributors like I'm Moses with the tablets coming down from the mountain, just like, here's how the community needs to go. And of course, you got your critics. Like, I had one person in one of the groups, they were like, oh man, why's it got to be so many emojis? And I'm like, are you really? Is that what you're focusing on? Is the emoji count in this repository really?
Yeah, that I like emoji, but I think I can't remember. But
I love them.
Yeah, I think they're great, but I think the spec actually allows you to not use emoji. Yeah, I don't remember. But the spec is like, it's pretty fluffy. I pretty much just want people to recognize contributors to an open source project who may not have contributed code. That was like the whole impetus for the thing.
Don't worry, man. I got your back. I told them if they don't like it, pull requests are always welcome.
Yeah, totally. Right up there. There's a badge that says PR's welcome. So
you got to be accountable. That's the thing, man. There's two. Wait, where was my quote for today? I got to bless Todd with this. What can't do with this? It's easier to tweet than do. We tweet back, but we don't give back. Why not create our own structure within the structure that we're in and complaining about?
I love it.
Yeah. What do you think?
Give back. Yeah, that's
sir. So number 5, pull request review, comma, closely. What do we think that one means?
Pull request reviews closely.
Comma, closely. Pull request review. Is that's singular? pull request review, comma, closely.
Closely. I'm not sure what the closely thing means, but
Maybe close is in proximity of learning, to your point before, you know?
Yeah, maybe so. Or it could be that like when I make a pull request, I want to review like soon or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, open source is a great way to learn. And
it sure is.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that for people getting into development. Open source brings in a lot of really great things. I think I've got a blog post about this, like how open source has been great for me. But you wind up reading a lot of people's code, and a lot of people read your code. And so reading other people's code teaches you like ways of doing things that you might not have thought about before, like design patterns and features of the language. And having other people read your code and review it is also really like fantastic. Like they can say, oh, there's this new feature and we're transpiling ES6 or something. And so you can use this cool new feature that makes this code easier to read, more terse, whatever. Or like, you know, architecturally, this isn't the best way to go. And so as long as people are friendly, have in their reviews, having that feedback on your code is extremely valuable. So like for these developers that you're saying they want a free internship, they just want to get into it. I'd say like it would probably be just fine to spend your time in open source until you can land like a paid gig, because
exactly.
you've got like thousands, hundreds of thousands of coworkers out there in the open source world. And so just find a project that like you use in your side projects and start contributing to that.
There's one thing that's happening in the Ruby community. There's a couple of things that's happening. There's the junior devs are being, I don't know, one other thing that I don't know is getting in their head is the question, is Ruby dying? Which is fascinating to me. It's not, it just is a decreasing number of senior devs that are available. I think it was Uncle Bob, shouts to my Uncle Bob. He stated something like, some arbitrary number that I don't know the exact number to, but I just know there's like every 5 years, apparently like there doubles the amount of developers or something crazy like that. Whoa. And some people say, well, people don't, yeah, man. Of jab of ageism. I'll say it, like there's ageism going on in the community where you might see someone who may have some years on them and say, well, they can't know anything new. And it's just like some people ask questions, what happens to the older devs and stuff? And my mentor himself, he said, they're still around. It's just so many new devs that come out every 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So if we go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say we need to value the people who have experience. Like earlier, I was talking about how it can be valuable to have fewer things to forget, you know, about the old way of doing things. But like I said earlier, like it is really, really valuable to have that actual longevity of experience. You understand a lot more, I think. And this isn't me speaking from experience. This is me just assuming that experience is really valuable, because I'm still pretty new to this myself. But yeah, sure. Like we should certainly never be disrespectful to people. Like ageism is not a nice thing. And yeah, we have a lot to learn from people who have been doing this for a long time.
Last and definitely not least, number 6. And this is, man, those juniors, they ask. And anyone that knows me knows I don't like the phrase junior and senior, but I get it. Like I understand it. It's Linus's security blanket. Okay, I understand. But number 6, this is when they tear the house down, man. We need closer connections between senior and junior developers, period. And then there's an exclamation point after the period. So I guess I'm pretty sure that wasn't a question due to the double punctuation, huh?
Yeah. Using every punctuation except the one that we were expecting. Yeah, so closer relationships between junior and senior. Yeah, I could see that being a valuable thing. Like how to develop those closer relationships. honestly, I think for me, participation in open source has been really big there, as well as going to meetups. But like in your experience, there aren't as many senior developers at meetups. And honestly, like I don't really go to meetups all that often because I have a lot of other things that I'm involved with. And so like I generally won't go to a meetup unless I'm speaking, just because I have just a lot of other things to do. But going to conferences, you'll find a lot of senior developers at conferences. And so if you can get your company, if you have a company, if you can get your company to pay for you to go to a conference, that's a great thing to do. Also be kind of
you're right, Kent. That would be great, because guess what? Out of all that travel I just talked to you about, as out of my pocket, homie, because I saw and I was like, I'm gonna be active in this community. Like, if people aren't active, honestly speaking, they need to get out of the way. It's really that simple. And if you don't have a way to get in the way, hold your jobs accountable. How are they making multiple millions of dollars without giving back to the open source community? Like, what do we mean we're too busy to contribute a pull request? Really?
Yeah.
Aren't they making that thing to make your jobs easier so they don't have to really do that? So where's all that extra time and money going to then, Kent?
Totally. Yeah. This conversation needs to be had for sure. Like with your employer, they should allow you to do your job, really. Like participating in open source is part of your job. If you use open source, it's part of your job to contribute back. We do need to be careful though, like and make sure we check our privilege. Like not everybody has a nice cushy job where they'll let them take time off from work and pay for them to go to a conference, and they might not be able to afford to go themselves. And so that's tough. But if you can be a self-starter and like you can start a podcast, for example, or like it really it takes work, it takes legwork, but like most of the stuff that you can do to get involved with things is more of a time consumption thing than it is a money consumption thing.
Absolutely, because people keep thinking it's about money. It's about time. At the end of the day, everyone's an activist until a dinner bell rings.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just being real, bro.
It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time, and yeah, like I think there's no problem putting yourself out there and like not everybody is really into being I don't know, like some people would be nervous to get in front of a group of people, and like that is a challenge, and that's not a challenge that I share. I get nervous, certainly, but I love doing it. And so yeah, it's tough, but I think that people can do this.
Yeah, we can't do it alone though. Hashtag teamwork to make the dream work.
Yeah, yeah. And like if speaking isn't your thing, or like participating in that way isn't your thing, you can still like write blog posts and participate in the community in that way. So and by doing that, you can like strengthen your relationship with other developers. And often, like when I see somebody's blog post, or when somebody tweets at me, or when like whatever somebody participates in my open source projects, I don't know whether they're senior or junior or whatever. Like, but the more we interact, the more like the closer I get to them, and the stronger relationship we develop. So, yeah. So there are ways.
Yeah, I did that myself, man. I'm learning instead of just trying to
your microphone is like really scratchy.
Oh, let me fix that. I happened before.
You're muted now.
Yes, we're back.
There we go.
I'm gonna have to get me one of those SM7Bs like my boy Can't See Dons over there, man.
This thing is nice.
I'm over here on that struggle cardoid.
This is a gift from Egghead.
Oh yeah, that's a hell of a gift, man. Hashtag heart eyes. Wow.
Yeah, nice. Hey man, so I've got a meeting in like 10 minutes. But sure. Is there anything we should talk about wrapping up?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea that I came up with, this is awesome to get your answers, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to approach it not from me saying, here's what I think the people want. It's like, who am I? Collectively, like I said, when I say hashtag teamwork to make the dream work, it's true. And I said, I'm just going to, I'm going to start and reach out to people who I respect and pay homage. I had to pay homage to you because you helped me come up with content for my RubyConf talk. And I've been using that all contributors as like I said, it's like the holy commandments when I'm like, look, Ruby community, this is how to get people to contribute more, because there's somewhat of an oligarchy going on. And it's okay when there's people who hold the keys, but it's not when they're sleeping at the job a little bit.
Yeah. Have you seen the first timers only thing?
No, what's that? First timers only.
Yeah, I'll send you a blog post. This thing is, I think that you'd love it. kcd.im // first timers only. That's a blog post that I wrote a year and a half ago, maybe almost year and a half ago, about something that I did. Basically, I'll just explain it really quick. So I had this issue in one of my libraries that I was writing Angular formally, and it was like a super quick and easy fix. I think it was like an additional condition in an if statement or something like that. And so it was like one line change. So in my libraries, I love doing TDD. And so I like there were like 2 tests and I wrote those tests and they were failing, and I went and implemented it and they were passing, and I was like, sweet, this was easy. And right before I went to commit, I realized, or I stopped and I thought like, this was really easy for me because I know the code base, I know how to contribute to open source, I know how to do this. But for somebody new, this wouldn't be easy. Like this would take some effort, not just like the implementation. Like the implementation for them would be probably reasonable, like it's a single line change, but the process of creating pull requests and doing all that stuff, that part is challenging for anybody. Even if you're like super senior developer, you've just never done open source, that part's still like something new to learn. And so I marked the tests as skipped, and I removed my implementation and I committed those up to the repo. And then I made the issue for this on GitHub, the issue, like I spelled out in a bunch of steps, like exactly what to do to implement this change, make a pull request, like every single step. And like, here's the implementation, put this on this line and that's it. And then change the tests to not be skipped. And if those are passing, then you're good. And then the kicker was that I would only accept a pull request from somebody who's never contributed to open source before. Oh, wow. And so that was like a super awesome experience. Within like an hour, I had somebody who'd submitted a pull request and merged it, and everything was super. And I did that a couple of times on the project, and then I wrote this blog post, and you'll find a lot of first timer only issues on GitHub now.
Well, thank you, man. Because again, bro, like without that all contributors repository has helped so many, and I feel it's one of the things that's helped me contribute in the Node community. RubyConf, I was saying that I've done more open source contributions to code in the past 6 months than I have ever in my Ruby career, and that wasn't intentional. Like that's what I tell them. I'm not a ship jumper. Like that was just because it was so welcoming to get work in. Like we can take things from that community and bring them over to others. Like trust, Ruby developers aren't the only ones that get pissed off at writing JavaScript. JavaScript developers do too as well.
Yeah.
But do understand we're all people. And one thing you mentioned to come up with a podcast. So this really was a talk to get ideas about. We have a podcast coming up. We decided to call it Dev Punks. How does that name roll off the tongue? Dev Punks.
Yeah, it totally rolls off. Dev Punks. Yeah.
Nice. And what Dev Punks is imagine if it's a junior developer, a senior developer, and a hiring manager all in the same room doing a Pomodoro, doing the same format here. Let's talk it out and ask each other questions and see what's going on. And the way you make people accountable, I'm thinking about this. That's the foundation. But I'm thinking there has to be some accountability, almost like a gamification to it, to whereas it's like, I was on Dev Punks. Now, who am I going to pass the baton on to be the junior or the senior or the hiring manager to be on for the next one? And what I'm telling people is, what, you don't have 15, 20 minutes? Like, really? So I appreciate the time you even had, and that. Do you think that that would help a lot? I mean, you just mentioned that, possibly creating podcasts, and really we're talking about content.
Yeah, yeah,
What do
totally.
you
In
think about
general,
that?
like however you want to make it. Yeah, I
Mm.
think your idea sounds amazing. I would like that. That's a super awesome idea. I would love to listen to something like that.
Forget.
Having
Listen,
made,
would you be interested to be on one of them? You can pick either being a junior, a senior, or a hiring manager. It's up to you.
I don't know if I
And it
could
would
play
be
all
just
three of those roles.
it'd be just like this what we're doing here, but I think there'd probably be somebody that has a job, has job offers, or maybe someone who thinks they're senior and they're really junior, and they talk to Mr. Todd. That guy ain't no senior. You trolled me, man. Oh, ain't no junior. You trolled me, man.
So I think it would be awesome. I would love to be on it. I'd love to listen to it. I'll just tell you some.
Awesome. It's time to do a handstand.
Handstand. All right.
Can't see Dodds is gonna be on. Can't see Dodds is gonna be on the top on Death Punks, man. This is awesome. We do this before every meetup, Kent.
Wow, that's impressive.
You saw it. Kent C. Dodds is going to be on Dev Punks. That's
Wow.
what's up. Never have I ever.
Dude, man. All right. Yeah, I'm happy to do it.
When's the last time somebody did a handstand because they were excited you were going to be on their show, man?
That's never happened.
Kent, man, I appreciate your time, brother. We'll link up for that, but this is awesome, man. I can't wait to share it.
Yeah, sure thing, man. Thanks so much for the chat.
Do you have any questions for me?
No, man. I'm grateful to you for the things that you're doing for the community. I think it's great. Working on that is not an easy thing, so keep that up.
It's not, dude. It's not, man. But I'm built for it, Kent. I just need some guidance from people like yourself, and I can help make sure that your message passes through as you see.
Cool. Thanks, man.
All right. Take care, brother. Now I got to go take a shower. I'm tired.
Bye.
Take it easy, man. Peace.